Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I am super excited to share some fantastic news for all you Blazor enthusiasts out there. We are diving into a game-changing feature in .NET 9 that will make managing services in your Blazor components a breeze. Now, if you have been working with Blazor, you know that in .NET 8, when we dispose of a component, sometimes the service it used will stick around longer than what we wanted. Picture this to understand. You have a service that tracks user sessions, but it continues to run even after the component is gone. It's like keeping the light on in an empty room. What are you doing? You're wasting resources and potentially causing confusion with star data. But if you are thinking of how to solve that, don't worry. Here is the good news. With Own Component Base, you can now scope services to specific component. When that component is no longer in use, the service gets disposed of it too. No more lingering services. This means cleaner memory usage and a smoother user experience. Why is this so important? Imagine you are building a dynamic chat feature where each user has their own session. If that session hangs around after the component is gone, it can lead to all sorts of headaches. But with Own Component Base, you would have the tools to keep your application efficient and responsive. And in this video, I'm going to guide you through how to implement this Own Component Base, showcase its benefits with some live coding, and help you build Blazor applications that are not just functional, but also a joy to use. Let's jump right into our Visual Studio and let's start it. Make sure you have your Visual Studio 2022 or higher installed. You also need to install .NET 9. So when using Visual Studio, you do not need to download the SDK and install it manually. Well, you can do that, but just update your Visual Studio installer. Then you can get the .NET 9 SDK installed. Very simple. So do that. After that, launch your Visual Studio and let's create project. So create new project. Let's go in for Blazor web app, and in this case we're going to focus on the interactive server. This cuts across all models, but well, let's use one. Interactive server will be okay for this. How do I even give this project name? So demo, I'll say manage component or service scope by component. Sounds long, right? But it makes sense. It means the component is going to manage the service scope. Alright, so demo manage service scope by component. It has created. Choose location, click on next, and here it is a change. You make sure you go in for .NET 9 preview, although it is not yet released. Which is await this November, but well, we can have the preview and try this. So make sure you have the .NET 9 preview selected as a framework, and for everything should be default, and you only need to select server for the interactive render mode. You can also choose WebAssembly, you can choose that, or the auto, you can also go for that. Now click on create to get this project created. So we have the project created and it is ready. When you check our solution in .NET 9, it is still same. We have our program.cs file and everything is at default as we know. Now the next thing that we're going to handle here is, I was thinking of how to make this simple for you to understand. So I plan not to integrate database in here. We're going to create a dummy service which contains the interface implementation, and in that you're going to use this to test it and explain this concept. Okay, now let's go in and create a model, a simple model as always, product, my favorite. And aside from that, we're going to create an interface implementation which is going to be a service. In here we're going to create a hard-coded list variable which is going to handle or save the list that we're going to add. We're going to have only two interfaces, that is add and get. Let's create a service, but before that we can put everything in one. So I'm going to add a class in here, and this class is going to be Let's make it an interface first. So I'm going to say this is iProduct, as you know. Now with this, let's first create a class. So we're going to be using, or we need a class here, isn't it? Or a model. So I've already prepared this. This is a very simple one. So when I have it here, I need not to type it again for just simple one. So you can see we are having just an ID and our name. That is what I have been doing. If you've been following my tutorials, I've been using product. So I do have the properties there. Okay. So now I have this model created. I need to create my interface. Now with this interface, let's have our two method or two interfaces here. That's going to be add product. This is going to be an async because we're not connecting to any service. So we have add products and we have get product. I believe these interfaces are simple and clear. Great. Now let's have the implementation. So in here, what are we going to do? We're going to have our public, which is class, and let's say this is product service. This product service should inherit from iProduct. That is the interface. We can go ahead and implement the interfaces. Let's say iProduct, product service, implement the interface. So here, what are we doing? We need to create, let's create quickly. This should be public. Let's have list of products. So we are having a hard-coded variable to save this. We are not creating any service here. And let's say this is equal to, let's initialize this. Okay, so now we have public list of product, and we are initializing it here as new product or new list of product. Now what that we need to do here is quite simple. We can just use this lambda expression. Since we're having just a line of code, we not to waste space. So dot add, and what are we adding? Put it there. I believe you've done already, product. And here, in case you want to get product, what are you going to do? Use lambda expression, and I'll get return this product. Simple, the simplest service ever. So we have it here. Let's save this. We are done with the implementation. Now you know we have a lifetime, or we have a way of registering this, creating scope for this. We can be using the scope, or we can be using transient or singleton. Any of this is going to work. Let's go in for scope. That is what I've been doing. Now for scope, it means when instance is created until the application closes, this scope will be available. Let's go to our program. And in here, we're going to say builder.services.add scope. Let's have our product. That's an interface. And we have in the product service. That is the implementation. Let's terminate it beautifully. Oh, I don't want to duplicate this. Save that. Let's go to our component. That is where the magic comes in. So let's use the pages folder. Home component, let's use this for this trial. Let's make this as interactive, since you're going to be adding a simple input to save this as product model. So let's have render mode. Let's set this as interactive server, because that's what you're using. Let's get rid of all this. Now let's have a method down here, and this method is going to, so let's see, at code section, maybe we're having string ID. We're going to have an ID. It shouldn't be a string, isn't it? Because talking about ID should be an integer. And let's have a string that's going to be product name. Or we can create, when you create instance of a model, it means you need to use an edit form. We are not using an edit form here. So we can just create this variable to handle that. Now, when page initializes, when the page is starting, we want to check in case we have any records in the product list. Kindly get them and put them on the screen. So we can use an override and a lifecycle method known as onInitialize async. Since this is not an asynchronous call, we can use this. Then let's pinpoint this to a service that you're going to create, isn't it? Okay, now aside from this, we also need to have save. Now this save is going to save, yes. And now when this save is called, we're also going to process something, isn't it? Great. So now we have this, we're going to complete it, but let's go ahead and then create a simple UI for this. Well, I have a table that I'm going to loop through the list that I'm going to provide, and I'll display them. So this is a table, very simple table. Now with this table that I have in here, it takes in product. It has two headers. It's looping through the rows and asserting the table data for each item in the product list. Quite simple, isn't it? Now here, let's create list of product for the model that we have created. And now say this is product. We can initialize this to new list. So that is what you're going to loop through. When the app starts, product is going to be null because you're not calling any service. Okay. So here we're going to handle that with the new way of handling this. That is in .NET 9 using Owen component base. So, first of all, let's have a look with .NET 8. That is what we normally know. Once we have our service in .NET 8 or below, if you want to use this, I know you've done it already, isn't it? You're telling me that, hey, Netcode, yeah, what we're going to do here is go in there and inject it. Perfect. So let's inject this. So this is product, and I'll create an instance of product service. With this product service, we go in here and I say product service dot product or get product, which returns the list of product. And now for this, we say product service dot add product. Then here we need to specify new product. Since it is taking a product, we say new product. Then we say ID here is equal to this ID, while the name is equal to the name that we have. That is a very simple thing that we need to do, and we are done. When we run this, let's test this out. Oh, I just remembered one thing. Like we said, this is running, but we don't have any form to input this. Well, I created just a simple form down here, which takes in two inputs, and now with that input, it has a button in it. So maybe I can just put them down here. Just having a break, having two input, which is bound to an ID and our name, a button click, then we're going to call this method. So let's save this and let's rerun this again. Now our beautiful form is ready. Can you see yours? This is mine. Now in here, if I decide to add, let's put an ID here. So the first item is Netcode-Hub item. Well, I don't have any item yet, but let's put it there. So if I click on save this, it should add. Let's see, a button is clicked. What is happening here? Nothing is happening. We are not saying that. Let's see. So from this, we save that. Then we call this and add it. There's an ID which is bound to the input. And when we get the list, okay, so we are adding. But you see what we are doing? We should call this product service so we can get the list, isn't it? That is what we must do. Since we have the interactive server, it means this page is what? Interactive. So after we are adding, we should have a method to call what we just added. Okay, so we can use this again and then call this here. So this product, when the page load, we're saying that this product is equal to get this product service. And now when I'm done adding, I want to also call this again. Yes, I got it. Now this should work. So we're going to test this out, item 1, and for this, it should work now. Okay, so here we have it, item 1. We can upgrade it to item 2 if you want, and we can be adding a lot of records or items here. Good. That is what we know from .NET 5 to 8. We know this. Now let's go to the new enhancement in .NET 8. .NET 9 instead. Now you can see that from here, this service has been injected. Now this component is not managing the service of this. So let's assume here you're creating a chat app whereby a class is responsible for handling user connection. Now, if this service is not being handled by this component and now the client exits this component, it means it's going to hold some issues in there, right? Because the component is closed, but maybe the service in the memory is still be persistent, and that's not the best. So that is the reason why the Microsoft team made this enhancement by introducing the own component base. In this case, you are giving this component the authority, the mandate to manage the service of this interface with its implementation. So after creating an instance for this specific user, when the user closes this component, when the component is being closed, dispose method is being called, right? So during that method, this component disposes the service as well. So that is 2 in 1. Okay, so with this, let's see. We're going to comment this. And here, all that we're going to do here is we need to inherit. So inherit, am I doing the right thing? Inherit and own component base. Pass in your interface. So that's an I product. Now, when you have this interface pass on, you don't need to create any instance or any object out of this interface. Here, we created an object here, isn't it? But here, you don't need to do that. This own component base is going to create a default instance for you. So if you right click on this component and now check, maybe pick definition, it's going to give you some properties. Now you see that here it is inheriting or taking in a T service. That is the interface that we have created. And it's going to give out what? A service. That is the instance name which will be automatically created for you. So if you want to access the instance of this interface, don't look any place than grabbing this service. And here it has iDisposable. It means that this component is responsible for disposing. And now when it is disposing, it's disposing this component as well as the interface or the service that you have injected. It's quite simple, isn't it? Great, so let's see how this is going to work. So when we come here, you don't need to use this service anymore. Let me create a duplicate of each. Here, let me comment this. Comment this. Now with this, all that you do here is to clear this off. Use service, which is automatically created from this component base. The same thing applies to this. And now check it out. Now we have this. Let's try it. You can see I've commented the interface injected. So we are using the new one introduced, .9. Let's give it a try and check it out. So we have the page opened. Let's try and see whether this service is going to work. When we pass in an item or record, is it going to get saved? Well, let's see. Oh yeah, it is. So you can see this is also working. Now, aside from this, although this own component base has its own iDisposable interface that gets called whenever you navigate out of this component to get this component disposed as well as a service, you can still perform some extra functions if you want to call that in a dispose method. You can do that both in the service or in the component. Let's have a look how to do that in the service, then we check how to do that in the component. Now in the service, all that you need to do here is to implement the iDisposable interface. In case you want to have an asynchronous call, then you use an iAsync disposable. But since you're not having that, we can use this iDisposable interface. As soon as you have this interface, you come back to implementation, and in here you implement the implementation here, which gets you the dispose method. So when you run this application and this instance of this service is created, when it gets disposed, this method also called, in addition to the default one found in the own component based method or component. Now let's have a private. We can have just a private. Let's say it's dispose. Let's set this to false. And here, as soon as this page wants to dispose, we want to set this to true. Okay, so now we are having this. Let's make it public so maybe we can access it outside. Now, once we have the, let's put a breakpoint and I run it and see. Although we are saying that this is going to be disposed by the component, yet still you can also perform an extra function that you want to add. Check it out. So you can see that as soon as the app starts, this method has called, right? Click on continue. Let's open our project. Now in here we have let's pass in one, item 1. Now click on save. Let's say I want to navigate to another component. Counter, see what happens. This is also called. So that is when the page or when this component is dying out. This service that you have at hand here is going to be disposed since we are using owning component. It means that this component owns this service and it can manage it how it wants it. Great. Now what if in case you want to call or this method here? It's also possible. All that you're going to do here is also implement. So implement iDisposable. And here let's have a method implemented. So down here you can have a public void then dispose. We can also create, so is disposed, set this to false, and in here let's through this. Now put a breakpoint. So both in our service and our component are going to get hit. Let's see. And yes, of course, you can see that it is hit, right? Then click on continue. So we have this method hit from this side. Okay, so let's pass in one, item 1. Click on save. Now let's go and navigate out of this component, go to the next component, and I can see this method is also hit. Click on continue, and you can see we have navigated from this page. It tells you that this home component has been disposed alongside with the service. I hope you now have a clear understanding of how powerful owning component based in .NET 9 can be when it comes to managing the lifetime of your services within Blazor component. With this feature, you can easily dispose of services when they are no longer needed, making your apps more efficient and preventing memory leaks. If you found this video helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up and feel free to drop any question or comment below. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out any of our exciting .NET and Blazor content coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.